The yellow school bus screeched slightly as it came to a stop, its doors folding open with a familiar hiss. It was Lisa's first day in the new neighborhood, new house, new school, and now, a new routine. The sun was gentle that morning, casting long golden beams across the pavement, as Nina Johnson stood at the curb with her daughter, watching her step onto the bus. Lisa looked back over her shoulder, her curls catching the light, her backpack hanging crookedly on one shoulder. She waved, Nina waved back, her smile brave but tight, her heart skipping in that particular way only mothers know, half hope, half dread. The driver, Mr. Miller, offered a nod, gray hair, wrinkled hands. His smile was calm. Too calm, perhaps, the kind of calm that comes not from kindness but from practiced habit. For 30 years he'd driven this bus route, and everyone in the neighborhood swore by his name. You're lucky, one neighbor had told Nina just a day earlier. Miller's a staple around here. Kids love him. But there was something about his eyes Nina hadn't liked. Something about the way they scanned too quickly past Lisa, too quietly, too mechanically. She let it go. That morning, like every morning, was packed with logistics, getting Malcolm's coffee in a to-go mug, setting up her home office, arranging the rest of the moving boxes. They had just uprooted their lives for this. A bigger house. A better school district. A safer neighborhood. At least that's what the brochure had promised. But none of the glossy paper mentioned how it would feel to be the only black family on the block. None of the smiling photos of parks and bike lanes showed the way neighbors looked a beat too long when they stepped outside, or how silence filled the air after Nina's polite good morning went unanswered. Still, she told herself, we did this for Lisa, and Lisa, bright-eyed and curious, had taken to the change better than either of her parents. She'd explored the backyard barefoot. She'd named the big oak tree Mr. Wiggles. She'd even made a friend in the moving crew, a young man named Tyler, who showed her how to make shadows look like animals on the garage wall. It was Lisa's resilience that had reassured Nina the most. Children adapt, people say. And Lisa did, until she didn't. That evening, Lisa bounded down the bus steps. Her smile was wide, her stories endless. She spoke of a girl with braces who let her share a cookie. She spoke of a game at recess that ended in giggles and grass stains. She said her teacher had a poster of Maya Angelou on the wall. She liked that. She liked the way it felt like home. But when she got to the part about the bus driver, she paused. He's kind of mean, she said casually, stirring her macaroni with her fork. He talks weird sometimes. Nina had tilted her head. What do you mean, weird? Lisa shrugged. He just says stuff, like not to me, not always, just stuff. Malcolm chuckled from across the table, dismissing it with a wave of his hand. Old men say weird stuff. That's part of their job. Nina smiled back, but inside something shifted. That night she lay in bed beside Malcolm, listening to the slow rhythm of his breath while her own thoughts wouldn't quiet. Something was off. She couldn't name it, not yet. But a mother doesn't need evidence to know when a ripple is forming beneath the calm surface. Sometimes it's just the way your child hesitates before saying a name. Sometimes it's how their eyes look away when they used to meet yours. She rolled onto her side and whispered into the dark, I think something's not right with that man. Malcolm didn't stir, and the night swallowed her words whole. The next morning, the sun rose the same way it always did. The bus arrived at the same time. Mr. Miller smiled the same exact smile. But Nina now was watching. Days passed, then weeks. Lisa still climbed the same bus steps every morning, and Mr. Miller still wore that same unchanging smile. Nothing on the surface had changed, but Nina noticed the difference in her daughter. It started small. Lisa no longer came home with stories tumbling out of her mouth. Her answers became shorter. School was fine. Lunch was okay. Well, nothing happened. Nina, once delighted by the chatter that used to fill the car or dinner table, now felt like she was watching something slowly closing. Like a flower that had bloomed too early and was retreating, petal by petal, into itself. And there were other things. Lisa stopped asking for her favorite braids. She began avoiding the swings in the backyard, the ones she used to beg to play on. She flinched, just slightly, when Malcolm touched her shoulder from behind, something she'd never done before. Nina brought it up one evening softly while they folded laundry in silence. You used to tell me everything about your day, she said, smoothing a wrinkled shirt. Now you barely say anything. Is everything okay at school? Lisa, sitting cross-legged on the floor with socks in her lap, didn't look up. Yeah, she said, it's fine. Nina crouched down beside her. Honey, you know you can talk to me about anything, no matter what. Lisa's hands paused, clutching a tiny pink sock. Her voice came quieter than usual. I don't want to get anyone in trouble. That made Nina's heart stop. Why would someone get in trouble? Lisa bit her lip. It's nothing. And she walked away, leaving the question hovering like smoke in the room. That night when Nina told Malcolm, he shook his head. She's probably just adjusting. New house, new school, new everything. You're reading into it. No, Nina said quietly. I'm listening to her, even when she doesn't say the words. Malcolm sighed and didn't argue, but he didn't help either. So the next morning, Nina did something she hadn't planned. She waited for the bus to arrive, like usual. She smiled and kissed Lisa's cheek, like usual. But when the doors closed and the bus pulled away, Nina got into her car and followed. She kept a few cars back, cautious. She didn't know what she expected to see, but something inside her refused to stay still. At each stop, she watched carefully, and something struck her. Lisa was always the last to board. Even when other children were waiting with her, Mr. Miller waved them on, holding Lisa back for just a second longer. Sometimes he spoke to her. Once he placed a hand on her backpack. It looked harmless. On camera, it probably would be, but Nina felt it. The way her daughter slightly hunched, the way she looked down when he talked. At school, Nina parked across the street and watched the children file off. Mr. Miller smiled and waved at each of them, even patted a boy on the head. When Lisa came down, he leaned close and said something to her. Nina couldn't hear it, but the way Lisa stiffened said enough. It was the kind of discomfort no one teaches you to name at 8 years old. That afternoon, Nina asked again, "Did Mr. Miller say something to you today?" Lisa paused, then a practiced smile. "No, Mom, everything was good." But her eyes told a different story. Nina didn't push, not yet. But that night, after Malcolm had gone to bed, she sat on the edge of the couch holding Lisa's baby photo. The one with the tiny red shoes and the gummy grin. And she made a silent vow. If no one else would ask the hard questions, she would. Because Lisa's silence wasn't random. It was survival. And somewhere behind that silence, Nina was sure there was a truth waiting to be heard. It happened on a Wednesday. The day had been ordinary in every visible way. The sky was soft with clouds. The house smelled faintly of lemon cleaner, and Lisa left for school in her yellow hoodie with a butterfly on the sleeve. Nina watched the bus disappear around the corner like she always did. But something felt off. Again. That morning, Nina stayed near the window longer than usual. She didn't know why, she just did. She watered her peace lily twice. She made tea and forgot to drink it. And when Malcolm called on his lunch break, she barely heard what he said. Then at 4:20, the bus didn't come. By 4:30, Nina was pacing. At 4:45, she called the school. They said the buses were all back. That Lisa had left on time. She hung up, cold spreading through her chest like frostbite. She called Malcolm, her voice shaking. "Lisa's not home." "I'm on my way," he said instantly. But before he arrived, the front door creaked open. Lisa stood there, safe but different. Her hoodie was smeared with dirt. Her braids were loose. Her shoes looked soaked through. And her face held something Nina had never seen in her daughter before, something cracked. "Oh, baby," Nina whispered, pulling her in. "Where were you?" Lisa didn't cry. Not yet. She didn't even speak. She just stood in her mother's arms, frozen and trembling. When Malcolm came through the door 5 minutes later, Nina didn't need to explain. One look at Lisa was enough. They sat together on the couch, Lisa between them. Malcolm on her right, Nina on her left. The house was silent except for the low ticking of the hallway clock. Finally, Nina whispered, "Lisa, sweetheart, you said something happened again. What did you mean?" Lisa's lips trembled. Then, very softly, "The bus driver, he did it again." Time stopped. Malcolm blinked. "What did he do, baby?" Lisa looked at them both, her parents, her protectors. Then she lowered her eyes and spoke. "He made me get off. Not at school, not at our stop, somewhere else. I didn't know where I was." Nina's stomach dropped. "Why, Lisa?" she asked. "Why would he do that?" Lisa swallowed hard. "He said I talked too loud. He said people like me don't belong. And that I should learn respect." Malcolm's knuckles turned white. Nina could hardly breathe, but she kept her voice calm. "Has he done this before?" Lisa nodded. "A few weeks ago, but I didn't tell you. He said if I did, we'd have to move, that everyone would hate us, that it's better to keep quiet." Malcolm stood so fast the lamp wobbled on the table beside him. "That son of a—" "Malcolm," Nina said quickly, pulling Lisa closer. "Later, focus on her first." Lisa was crying now, tears falling silently as she sat cradled in her mother's arms. She looked small again, much smaller than 8. "I walked and walked," she said through sobs. "I didn't know how to get home. I just kept going until I saw the park I knew. Nina kissed the top of her head, whispering, "It's not your fault, not a word of it." "I thought I was bad," Lisa whispered. "I thought maybe I deserved it." That shattered something inside Malcolm. "No," he said firmly, kneeling in front of her. "Lisa, listen to me. You are good, you are kind, you are brave. You didn't do anything wrong. What that man did was evil." Lisa nodded barely. "Can we make him stop?" Nina exchanged a look with Malcolm, and then for the first time in hours her voice steadied. "Yes," she said. "We will. We're calling the police right now." And she did. The dispatcher on the other end transferred them to a detective almost immediately. Within minutes, arrangements were made. Statements would be taken. Investigations would begin. But Nina wasn't done. She called the school board. She emailed the principal. She wrote everything down, every time Lisa had mentioned him, every small, strange moment they had noticed. She wasn't going to let this disappear behind polite voices and closed doors. Lisa watched her mother from the couch, her eyes still red but a new light sparking behind them. That night when she went to sleep, she whispered, "Thanks, Mom." Nina kissed her forehead, "Always." And as the house quieted again, Nina sat awake, staring out the window, waiting for the morning, for justice, for whatever came next, because she finally had what she needed, the truth, and that truth had a voice now. When the front door creaked open and Lisa stepped into the house, 2 hours late, her hair tangled, her pink shirt askew and her braids no longer neat, the entire world seemed to tilt off its axis. Nina dropped the phone mid-call, her hands flying to her mouth as relief crashed into fear. Malcolm rushed forward and swept Lisa into his arms while Nina clutched her from the other side. Their embrace was frantic, trembling, a family desperately trying to stitch themselves back together before asking the most terrifying question of all. "Where were you?" But Lisa didn't answer. Her lips quivered and her eyes darted around as if afraid the walls might be listening. It wasn't until Nina gently cupped her daughter's face and said the words with a steadiness that came only from a mother on the edge of despair. "Tell us what happened, baby," that Lisa whispered. "The bus driver did it again." Time collapsed. The room fell still. The clock stopped ticking. Nina and Malcolm stared at her, breath caught like prey waiting for a predator to reveal itself. They moved her to the couch, one on each side, encasing her in warmth, anchoring her with love, trying to create a space safe enough for the truth to finally break free. Lisa's voice trembled. "He says things, bad things, about people like us, about how we don't belong here. He said if I ever told anyone, he'd make sure we had to leave." Her voice cracked. "He left me again, Mom. Dropped me off in the middle of nowhere." Malcolm looked like he had been physically struck. Nina could feel her blood run cold. The pieces clicked into place all at once. Every quiet car ride, every too short answer, every smile that didn't reach her daughter's eyes. When Lisa finished telling them everything, when her words had dried up and all that was left was silence and soft sobs, Malcolm gently took the phone and dialed 911. Nina held Lisa close and whispered, "We believe you, we always will." Police arrived quickly. Lisa's small voice repeated what she had told them, this time through tears, but steadier now, as the officers left to confront Mr. Miller. The Johnson family sat wrapped in a quiet defiance, a circle that no hate could break. At the station the next day, something unexpected happened. Another mother stepped forward, a woman from just 2 streets away, one of the only other black families in the area. Her eyes were fierce with protective fire as she said, "We experienced it too. We were just too scared to say anything." Her words cracked the silence and then more voices joined. The wall of silence shattered. The community could no longer pretend not to see. Mr. Miller was arrested. Other families came forward. A quiet storm had begun. In the weeks that followed, cameras were installed on every bus, new protocols put in place, and the school board called an emergency town hall. Nina stood there, voice clear and unwavering, and said, "This isn't about just one child. It's about every child who's ever been told to shrink, to disappear, to endure in silence. Not anymore." Lisa began to heal. It took time. Therapy, patience, soft mornings and long talks under quilts. But slowly her smile returned. One day, as Nina watched from the window, Lisa climbed onto a new bus. The new driver, a woman with kind eyes and soft curls, greeted her by name. Lisa turned back and waved, her eyes bright. Nina waved back, her heart full, not just with love, but with pride. Because they didn't run, they stood. And now, for the first time in a long time, their daughter was safe.